Half the comments I get, especially on YouTube, when I even bring up slavery are something like, but black people enslaved other black people for thousands of years. Now, this frustrates me. Let me break down the fallacies here. Black people, who are these black people they're talking about? I know they mean Africans, but if you've ever been to the continent of Africa, you know that calling inhabitants of that continent Africans is like calling people Americans, whether they live in Honduras, Chile, or Canada. There was no single African identity, neither then nor now, but thousands of distinct societies. In fact, when the transatlantic slave trade starts, there aren't countries or borders that even remotely resemble modern ones. I hate to admit it though, but the people who made those ignorant comments are 5% correct. I mean, it's like saying a broken clock is right twice a day. The Africa side of the slave trade was run by elites there. Now, that doesn't mean that enslaved people were not ever elites themselves. The slave traders in Africa would trade people that were either lower status in their societies, or they would go capture people from other societies regardless of social strata and make them into chattel, the lowest status group in the new enslavers society. Yes, those enslavers otherized people from other tribes, societies, and castes to morally justify selling them. But what the enslavers in Africa needed was a market, and there wasn't a bigger market for slaves ever than the sugar industry in Brazil and the Caribbean, and later the American cotton industry. Yes, the elite in Africa participated as suppliers in the trade, but the system itself was built, financed, racialized, and industrialized by European empires to feed plantation capitalism. And look, the United States and the colonies, they account for less than 5% of the entire population of humans trafficked in the transatlantic slave trade. The true despots were the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, and the British, who, by the way, brought nearly all of the slaves to the US pre-1776. Yes, tangentially, Americans sucked for creating a self-reproducing slave population, which didn't exist to that scale any time in human history. But when it comes to enslaving, the Europeans and the elite in Africa enriched themselves mightily. Later, colonial conquest, missionary land seizure, forced restructuring, and Cold War interventions, they severely disrupted many of these elite lineages in Africa, but not all of them. So when people say, black people enslaved black people, what they're really doing is shrinking the largest crime in modern history into a conveniently ignorant talking point, because if everyone's guilty, no one is responsible.